Um, as you're here, actually, I mean, have you seen a lot of Landmark Overlay, or is this kind of like your first chance you've had to see any part of the game, sort of thing? This is where it helps that I can still remember what I have on the hotbar. Um, the way the game works, it's essentially exactly like how Minecraft is, in that you just kind of like you can just kind of go at the world kind of thing, like what I'm doing here. The main difference is because the world is built off voxels rather than just square blocks, you can kind of see what's happening here, where it's like you can just kind of fluidly start bashing space in the world kind of thing. Now, what will happen here? How high is that water? It's not very high. It'll probably get to the point of where I hit water here. Oh yeah, here we go. The water level, at least in this current format, is constant. So you can kind of see I've kind of dug myself into like a little puddle here. See? You can kind of see lovely rippling effects. Pretty. And yeah, so it's like as a sort of basic sort of building game. Wow. I'm going to have to fix that. It'll be something to do with my rendering distance. I've got that set to. But yeah, I mean, as far as games themselves go, if you like to like just mess around building things and exploring and digging around and stuff like that, you can kind of go nuts with it. It isn't a subscription game. It's when it launches, it will be completely free to play. This sort of access, what I have here right now, you can gain access to closed beta in a couple of different ways. The first one is you can outright buy a founder's pack, which will give you essentially unlimited access to Landmark. That's what myself and quite a lot of guild members have. In that, the idea, at least anyway, is there's a couple of different tiers to that, and you can get them in a couple of different ways. You can either go onto the landmarkthegame.com, and there's an option for founders packs on there. The cheapest pack is $20 if you're from the States. And that'll basically just give you instant access into the closed beta if you want it. And it gives you a couple of other perks and things like that as well. You can also get it on Steam as well for things like that right now. But if you don't want to necessarily get access to it straight off the bat, you can wait around. Because like I said, it will be a free-to-play game when it's released eventually. But from the sounds of it, that's a little way off just yet. So it probably won't be around. It probably won't be free for a while. But once it is free to play, that'll be it. If I actually pull my UI back up, yeah, kind of like what happens with a lot of free to play games. It has its own store and things like that as well. So it's like you'll find that a lot of like the non-critical items and things. So there's a lot of cosmetic stuff that's available. There's a lot of things like things that like players and stuff are designed as well. Can you upgrade? Yes, you can. I don't know whether it works on Steam, but I know it does work on their main website. There's basically Let's see if this works. So, I'm just going to cheat very quickly. Bam. Make this a little bit bigger so it's a bit easier to see. Gonna hide some bits a little bit here, but so yeah, if you actually go onto the Founders Pack bit, it's on here somewhere. Yeah, here you go. If you go down to the bottom of it, I knew it was on this page somewhere. Basically, on the Founders Pack page, there's just like a click here to upgrade thing. And what it'll ask you for is it'll basically ask you to log in to your account, and it'll give you options to upgrade to, if you so wish. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, there's countless giveaways because they're slowly starting to ramp up the access into this closed beta. I know GameStop are currently giving out 7-day keys. A little while back, they had them for like the likes of who was it who was actually doing it? I think it was Alienware who are actually doing it as well. But you'll find like the giveaways for the most part are just 7-day keys. So like they won't necessarily be like the same sort of access. The standard giveaway access is only 7 days. So yeah, if you want kind of like completely unrestricted access, they're the ones where you basically have to get your founders packs. But yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I mean, the game itself, you will find yourself doing a lot of stuff with it. I should probably just leave my UI on for a bit. Oh, templates aren't too full yet. Ooh, come on. Yeah, there we go. So, like, some of the stuff, like this bit here, the Knight's Fort, this was actually our guild area, which was packed back up for me because I haven't had a chance to really get into game. So that was packed up for me last month. You can see there, it's got it packed up from the 16th of last month. Oh no, not even last month. It's now 2 months ago. We're into July now. Time flies. So yeah, I mean that's basically what it's saying there. Like, so it'll tell me when it was packed up for me. But yeah, I mean I've got loads of random bits and pieces like that. Also very, very random things. But yeah, I mean the game's kind of one of those where it's like you can kind of do whatever you want. Oh, there's a question and a half. How long? I was going to say how long is a ball of string, but no. Possibly. I mean, I would probably say early next year. One of the things of what's going to be coming on soon is because SOE Live is coming up. Sony tends to hold on to announcements like that for SOE Live. So it's entirely possible that they will announce either the date for open beta, which for all intensive purposes will be a soft launch, or B, the full launch date for the game. I would probably anticipate only to say when it's going to be open beta. Only because although they have been keeping on with the development at a rate of knots, I mean, 2 months ago this sort of stuff wasn't really in game. The caves and the water and things like that is all very new. Bubbles! So yeah, I mean, a lot of this sort of stuff is still very new. So I would probably, if I was going to put an educated guess to it, I'd probably say it would be available sometime next year. Exactly when though, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean it's kind of one of those. When is SOE Live? SOE Live is actually really quite soon. I want to say it's... Is it this weekend or next weekend? Or have I got the months wrong? It's soon anyway. I've only half been keeping... only half paying attention to it because I'm more interested in the EverQuest Next stuff. Oh, it's in August. So I'm a month out. I knew it was like kind of early on in the month. I couldn't remember when it was. If it was this month or next month. But yeah, August 14th to 17th. And yeah, they hold that in Vegas each year. They used to like change cities with it, but from the sound of it, they're pretty much set on Vegas from here on out. So yeah, I mean, it's for certainly for that sort of stuff. I say that they tend to keep a lot of big announcements for that, and that's the same with like their partners as well. Ooh, have I hit water again here? No, it's just a reflection. So yeah, I mean, for pretty much any big announcements, they'll hold on to it for that. Um, it's really hard to guess exactly what they're going to be doing for things like that. I mean, we kind of knew that they were going to be announcing the EverQuest Next stuff at SOE Live last year. This game Landmark was pretty much just kind of brought in from literally nowhere. No one had been told any information about it. It'd been kept really, really quiet. You might have trouble getting into it because I'm not sure, but I know certain parts of it are sold out. I think you can still get tickets for it, generally speaking, for like general admittance. But I know some of the things you'd have to like pre-register for, and some of those have already now been sold. Or well, the way it works is you pay for your pass, and then if you want to go to certain parts of the weekend, you basically have to like pre-register to say you want to go to those things specifically. So yeah, I think some of those have already been like now pre-booked, but outside of that, not so much. See you, Alex. Bye. Which topic was I on to? Oh, we've done WildStar. Oh yeah. This is the one thing I wanted to bring up, which was kind of like where this is kind of like where I'm at, waiting for a lot of stuff about EverQuest Next and things. For myself personally, this was kind of like a discussion I just kind of threw out there on Reddit, just for the hell of it, really, more than anything else. And it was basically to get people to kind of give their own thoughts on what would be their own perfect MMO kind of thing. And this might be kind of showing of where a lot of people want to have EverQuest Next coming from. Because although there was a lot of variation in it, first off, people are wanting the sandbox game now. They've kind of gone off the idea of wanting to have theme parks, which is kind of like what I was saying with WildStar. If anything else, the only fault I have with WildStar as such is that outside of the combat, it's exactly the same sort of format of what you've had with pretty much every single MMO in the last 10 years. There's not really a whole lot of innovation in there. That's a really nice phrase I like to use. It's very much iteration on an existing design. It's not innovation on it. Now, if Sony are going to have to pull off EverQuest Next, they will have to have a certain level of innovation in that. From going off what they were saying last year at SOE Live anyway, the core system they're going to bring in on there is going to be very, very new and different to what's been there before, which is kind of cool. Because, it is kind of one of those. I mean, Dave Jordan said it himself in the keynote last year, which was, it's kind of where we've got to the point where it's like enough of the same game already, and that's very much true. And like I said, I mean, it's no real fault of individual games so much. I mean, there's nothing, at least from a technical standpoint, there's nothing wrong with the likes of WildStar and pretty much any other game that's been out recently. So the likes of Guild Wars 2 and things like that. But yeah, I mean, there's no true originality in there, and that's kind of what a lot of people have been waiting for. And yeah, I mean, yeah, EverQuest Next in theory, will be on PS4. From the sounds of it, they're probably going to be doing something like what's similar to what they've been doing with their existing platform of games from SOE, in that it's going to be PC development first, and then the PS4 development will get rolled out. So, like for example, the newest game that they have, which is still soon to be on PS4, is PlanetSide 2. So there's a couple of things you can kind of take away from that. First off is that the engine must generally be capable of it, because otherwise they wouldn't bother, which basically means any other game that's built on the engine should also be capable of it. They have previous experience of working on the platform generally. So, there's a lot of things like that. So, for better or for worse, DC Universe Online was released for PlayStation 3 a while back. I actually, for some of the stuff in DCUO, I actually prefer it on the PS3. So, there's a lot of things like that where you can say like certain things work better with console, or at least in terms of using control versus keyboard and mouse. And from the sounds of it, EverQuest Next will have a similar sort of setup in terms of like having like a limited skill set. So a lot of that sort of stuff will translate quite nicely between PC and console, because you're not having to have like 20 billion things on the screen all at once. Yes, they did say that they are going to have destructible environments for there. It's essentially the way that they explain the interaction between EverQuest Next and Landmark is that Landmark's kind of the build it yourself version of what EverQuest Next will be. So they're giving us like all the tools and things like that to kind of build an MMO with, whilst also being like an exploration game and a building game and things like that. So it's like eventually, so like there's this sort of stuff now in Landmark, but eventually there will be a version of the setup that they'll have for EverQuest Next, where in Landmark you'll be able to mess around with the AI editors. You'll have mob spawners and like set world creators. They mentioned at E3 like they want to have things like where rather than having your normal sort of setup for claims and stuff in game right now, they want to have it where if you want to, you can kind of make like your claims into a sort of PvP arena sort of thing. So if you want to like design like a sort of set sort of thing where players can fight on different sort of like areas and things like that, you can kind of build that up and then set it to be like a PvP arena. So like they're doing lots of things like that where it's like rather than having a set sort of structure like what they're going to be doing with Next, you can kind of mess around with it in Landmark and kind of like do your own thing, which is kind of going to be cool. So I mean, it's if you look at how many sort of different player environments and game types and things like that people have made in Minecraft with its sort of system, God only knows what people are going to be able to make on Landmark once all those systems are in. But yeah, I mean, as I mean that kind of thing is still further down the line, kind of thing as well. So that's like the big sort of thing of where a lot of people are waiting around with Landmark. So it's like, as I mean, I've chucked in 300 plus hours into the game as it is anyway. Now, if I'd had more stuff to work with, I probably would have done more. But right now, I tend to just mess around and speak to other members of the guild and stuff. I don't tend to do so much building anymore. Yeah, I mean, DCUO is kind of one of those sort of games of where it's a nice sort of distraction game, is the best way I can explain it. Um, I tend to only play it because I've got a all access pass with Sony anyway. Um, because I like to play EverQuest 2 every now and then. I also play PlanetSide 2. So it kind of suits me to have that sort of thing, where I can kind of just go in and go nuts about it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like SOE have kind of got to the point of where they know they've screwed up in the past. I know, fair play to them, they've been completely honest about it. You know, I don't think I've seen a man apologise more than I've seen the number of times John Smedley has been on record and saying he's apologised for things that happened in the likes of Star Wars Galaxies and stuff. So, you know, they're the first ones to put their hands up and say that they have done things wrong in the past. Which, at least from my side of things, kind of shows with a lot of their new content that they're bringing on, where they're making a really big conscious effort to listen to the community and have that interaction. I mean, Landmark's insane for that. But, you know, they even started that with PlanetSide 2 and stuff as well, where they are giving people in the community a level of control and freedom to give them that information. So, you know, in theory, so long as like SOE are aware of what people want as a collective, then it's I don't want to say it should be an easy thing to make a game, because it never is. Having worked on games myself, I know it's not an easy thing. But it gives me certainly a lot more hope for what they might have in the pipeline. You know, they talked about H1Z1, which is their sort of zombie survival game, and even straight off the bat of that, it has more stuff in there in its early state from what I've seen in streams than like anything you'd see on the likes of DayZ and things like that. Again, it's running on the same engine. So, you know, the Forge Light engine is extremely capable. And yeah, you know, it's Sony are putting an awful lot of bank on the new set of games they've got. You know, PlanetSide 2, as I say, was the first one. They've got both Landmark and Next coming along now nicely. There is meant to be some announcement stuff and things coming for EverQuest Next for SOE Live. No one really knows what yet. It sounds like there's going to be some big stuff though, because again, they've got a lot of their partners coming to that and doing a lot of like keynote speeches and things like that. So they've got people like Storybricks going to be doing like a big thing about some of the AI stuff for EverQuest Next. That is stuff that they've previously kept under wraps. They even were like sort of big talkers about AI stuff and what they were doing themselves in a conference that literally just happened. They did a keynote sometime last night, I think. It was either last night or the night before. I can't remember which night it was. I wasn't paying attention. I was watching the football. Okay. But even during that, they were the head sponsor of that particular AI event. And it's a big conference for that side of the industry. Yet they even said right at the start of it that they're keeping some things under wraps specifically for SOE Live. So, you know, there's a lot of things like that where, from the sounds of it, there's going to be some like really big pieces of information coming out for EverQuest Next. But it's hard to tell exactly what right now. And yeah, there's mainly because there's a lot of that sort of stuff coming along the line. I mean, Landmark is probably the best example of it recently, but um, a lot of players want that sort of mix of where you can get both the player-made content and the sort of Sony-developed content, as it were. So there was a lot of talk about people wanting to be able to make their own dungeons and stuff for Next, just like they'd be able to with Landmark. Now, exactly to what level Sony let people do that, I honestly don't know. Because certainly for Next, they want to have a more concrete experience across the board. But at the same time, they do know that a lot of people have that level of control and knowledge as well. And they've kind of been trying things out in Landmark in terms of wanting to start the competitions and things like that to kind of see what level the community can create content with. So if Sony are okay to do that, then I would be very surprised if they wouldn't allow user-generated content to be in Next. But it would probably have to go through a much more stricter sort of approval process to actually get into Next versus being in Landmark. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that coming along. The one thing that people are talking about, which Sony again haven't really given a lot of information on yet, has been how their faction system's going to work. So one of the things that came up in the Reddit discussion was that one thing that a lot of people tend not to want is they don't want to have the sort of just good versus evil idea. So rather than just having two sides, they want to have a sort of multi-faction thing. Now, certainly if you look at a lot of games that are out there for current MMOs, there are sort of sub-factions in most games where it's you basically build up favour with a particular faction and so on and so forth. Now, exactly how that would work on a practical level is hard to tell. The main reason why they have the broad good versus evil is usually for the sake of PvP rather than anything else. But it could potentially just still work anyway. But like I said, it's a lot of that side of stuff is speculation right now, because outside of the general very, very broad strokes that we've had, Sony have kept quiet on combat and things for now as well. May let you create dungeons in Landmark, and if it's good yet. Yeah, I mean that seems to be the talk from what Sony have said right now. So I don't think there'll be anything stopping that sort of backwards and forwards interaction on there. Because again, I mean, bottom line, Landmark is built off the same systems as what Next will be. So I don't think there's anything stopping it. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those where I would like to think in an ideal world that they would have it, and I think they should. It just depends on how brave Sony want to be about certain things over the other. But yeah, in truth, I think they will do it, and I do hope they do it anyway, because it will be sort of one of those where if players can see that they have that potential option, it really does hold people into the game for longer than they might otherwise do it. My past experience, I worked on games like Pirates of the Burning Sea way back in the day, and because that game had a user content system for even just like little things like having flags and sails on the boats for that game, it kept a lot of people engaged in the game and the community because they wanted to see their own designs of things in game. Now they had to go through a relatively strict approval system for that, but many people did it because they wanted to have that sort of thing where they can say, "I made that; it's in the game." So if Sony have enough sort of rules and conditions that they're happy with, then I would be very surprised if they wouldn't have that sort of stuff in game. I'd like to think they would anyway. And I'm having no luck finding caves. I'm probably actually walking around on the same spot because I can't actually see where I'm going when I'm in a when I haven't got my UI turned on. Yeah, I'm trying to actually just go around different mountain tops and stuff, but because my map's not working too, I can't quite tell if I've gone through like the same sort of area and stuff before now. It's the only problem. All the rocks look the same. Tell you what, I'm just gonna set it off running. It can go and do its own thing. So yeah, there's certainly potential there to do this sort of stuff anyway. It just really depends whether they will or won't. I do still have a grappling hook. Good. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those little bizarre things, really. But yeah, I mean, I'm at least for my stuff because I'd kind of just written down a couple of things really quickly before coming on, because I wanted just to discuss a few little bits and pieces. But I've pretty much talked about all I wanted to. So, how long have I been on for? I've been on for about an hour, which is about as long as I wanted it to be. Convenient!